We're joined now from her home in Louisville, Texas, Donna Milton, the woman you just heard from. And I love a good conversation. So we invited to this party again, Keeton, Karen, Maggie. Since we're live, they are staying. And a dear friend who's been on our show many times, board certified psychiatrist, clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at NYU Langone Medical Center, Sue Varma. Thank you all for sticking around and joining us. Sue, I just want to start with you because I know that, you study our minds and how we think. This whole notion of guilt in getting it and being amongst the first. How do you explain that?
It's so interesting, Tamron, that there's this whole idea of, I was saying that on one hand, we can have guilt, but we can also have gratitude. And I'm fascinated by that because I think that this pandemic has brought on so many mixed emotions. I was telling people that grief and gratitude can coexist. And that's what's so interesting is that we can have losses, but we can still be very happy for the things that we still have. And that's what's happening. And this is, like you said, a form of survival guilt that we feel blessed and lucky that we've had access and privilege to something, but at the same time really feel sad for the people who can't get it. And I'm a big believer in reframing, spinning things to be positive, and some of your guests have talked about the two biggest things is number one, you're serving as a positive role model. So while there's a lot of fear and anxiety and maybe misinformation, you're setting a good example. And then number two, because COVID is a public health problem, we are taking public health responsibility by vaccinating ourselves and keeping other people safe. So in my mind, it's a win-win. And you just have to be able to reframe and respin that guilt.
And listen, one of the reasons that I wanted to do the show and the team wanted to do this show is because you can watch cable news and it's all like a lot of numbers, a lot of information for sure, but you don't hear people's stories. And our show is about storytelling. It's about the journey. And Donna, I felt like I was there with you, not just because you said, hey, Tamron, they just called me, but I was like, okay, here we go. And I'm in the car with you going in my mind to get that shot. I know that you live alone and you, like so many people watching right now, have felt this isolation and this weight of loneliness. When you were driving to get that vaccine, did you start in your mind making a list of things? I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, even though you have to still take precautions. Did you start making a mental list of things you were going to do?
Yes, while I was driving, I did make a mental list of things I was going to do, like go on a trip, maybe go to the mall, visit my sisters finally.
How do you describe that loneliness that you've been experiencing for folks who are watching? Take me into how that's been tough for you.
Well, it's like being in quarantine, not being able to go anywhere or do anything. I feel like I'm isolated all the time. I can't go anywhere because there's too many precautions I have to take. So I'd rather just stay home rather than deal with all the precautions.
Karen, you're breastfeeding your 2-year-old. You, of course, are in a profession that requires you to have gotten this early. Did you worry with breastfeeding?
Actually, no, not at all. In fact, my son was essentially weaned because he's over 2 now. And I encouraged him to continue breastfeeding because I'd gotten the vaccine in the hopes that I might be transmitting some antibodies to him because children are not eligible to be vaccinated anytime soon, especially at his age.
Yeah. Keeton, you have one more to go, one more dose?
I have one more dose to go, February 15th.
Like, is there a big heart on the calendar? I mean, I would be, it's like, is that like Christmas knowing that you're going to wake up and then get that second dose?
For me, it's in my big planner, but my entire staff as therapists, we are all kind of going through this process together. And it's going to be a big sigh of relief because it's the light at the end of the tunnel. And it feels like the jail cell, the doors are opening and we're getting to be free again.
Yeah, I mean, and again, as we know, the freedom is not unlimited. It is protection, but we still have to wear our masks. But it is a change, Sue, and that's the thing also, balancing the expectations of the freedom. As Keeton said, the jail door is open, but we don't want to run out. There's still some guards, and that means masks and taking those precautions. I'm curious, Sue, how do folks balance it when emotionally there's one person in the home who's received it and the other has not, which is the case in our home.
Yes. And it can be a little bit complicated because you're basically like going to be having two different sets of privileges, right? Where one person may feel like they're able to have their life move on and meet friends and socialize, and the other person feels like they have been left back in a way. And I think that it's really important to be able to have clear communication, expectations about who's going to do what. So I know in some families they're like, okay, well, you're vaccinated. Why don't you go ahead and take on all the grocery shopping? Wink, wink. I didn't want to do it anyway.
Well, that's what I was thinking too.
Or
I was thinking, if you're a couple and somebody are you like, okay, now you have to go and run all the errands because you've got the vaccine?
Yeah, which is not fair, But the other token is that somebody could say, "Well, hey, I can have dinner with my friends,"
Yeah.
and that may feel really like a divide in the partner, but it doesn't
Wow.
have to be because if you're able to look at your couple being or a family as a unit, and what you're doing is very important for the well-being of the unit. Because being that I'm in mental health, I do think that a big part of what we're dealing with COVID, as we know, is the mental health fallout. And so, if one member of the family is able to go to the gym safely or to be able to, interact with people safely, they're just bringing back positive energy into the relationship. So that's
Interesting.
less depression, that's less anxiety, that's one person in the unit suffering less from mental health problems. And, just what you were saying, Tamron, earlier about guilt, what's really important is that the themes of 2020 were very much about inequities and disparities. And I think that that's also another reason that we're feeling guilty is just because the distribution of who COVID affected has been more in certain populations, ethnic minorities. And I think that's also why a person feels guilty is that the conversation is about access, and we don't all have the same access.
Which
So I
is
think
why
that's
I'm
playing
happy
into it
we
as well.
had our diverse audience of people from all walks of life showing the picture of access and those who've been disproportionately. Maggie, you talked about traveling to visit your sister. We don't have a live audience right now. Hopefully, Lord willing, we will someday. But I am mad on your list. You didn't say, and I'm going to visit Tamron Hall show in person, too, with my vaccine. I'm concerned, Maggie, that I wasn't on the list. But I appreciate you joining us and wish you nothing but the best. And I can't wait to see pictures of you socializing with your sister when it's safe.